Again, Catholic. So she's next in line. But what's going to happen? The plot will be discovered, and what will happen in Norfolk? Executed. Elizabeth had volatile temper. The next one was with this bonehead named Bamington. And the same deal. Break her out of house arrest. Catholics will rise up all over, and the thought was a lightning strike. And so they would keep it all secret. Bring her to London, and then just rise up real quick before Elizabeth could react. And take London, and the thought was all the Catholics will come out, drive the evil Church of England out, even though their actual practices were almost no different, and take over. And then go up against Scotland. And these are the plotters plotting outside for Paris. I like how they all have the same hat. Well,
Some of labs didn't they?
Hmm?
Some of labs didn't they?
Yes. But also, they found the code. Yeah. Say it again. Yeah. Yeah. So she never saw him again after he was 1 year old. She had no choice. She had to live. That's. Oh, I should add that James is going to be raised a Calvinist, a Presbyterian. This is the code that she communicated with Babington. Here's the key, and what happened was somebody was bragging about how effective their code was. And an ally of Elizabeth said, let me see it, that sounds good, got the code, and boom. These people are vain. Whenever you see really big, elaborate conspiracy theories, they always break down. Always. The more people involved, the less chance it happens. That's why most conspiracy theories today are like 60 people at times. What if they survive? Most people have a theory, they're not real. Because they always break down. They always break down. And so, when Babington refused to talk, they had ways of making him talk. What is this called? It's the rack. And the rack is, they tie his feet down, and see that crank? They tie his arm and pull that crank and stretch it. Oh, then they might draw a quarter. They did quarter, beat him and stick his head on a pike. Now, by the way, does this tell you anything?
Yes, about brutal medieval life.
Well, this is not medieval anymore, but
Okay, Renaissance life.
does torture give you the truth?
No.
No. What does torture give you?
What you want to hear?
Confessions. They'll tell you anything you want just to quit torturing them. And so what did he do? Not only did he give up Mary Queen of Scots, he gave up every single enemy of what person? Elizabeth's enemies. All were involved, so he could get rid of them all. Torture does not give you the truth. Torture is a terrible way to get the truth or to get intelligence. But people will say anything. I can take it. We can take it. But people out there aren't as tough. By the way, you think, I want to be taller. No, don't do it. By the way, what do they do for traitors when they're like this?
Cut him in half.
That's a little hole in his mouth. Or their intestines. Well, they're stretched, so there's more room. That's science. So Mary Queen of Scots, finally Elizabeth would have her condemned. That's the last painting of Mary Queen of Scots. And she'd be executed in 1584. You don't need the castle, Father Castle. I've been by it, but I wanted to go in, but we couldn't go. It's closed. One of those things where Mondays, a lot of things are closed.
They're burning people in the back.
Yeah. Yeah. Those are other people who are a part of the plot. And she wore red, implying that she was dying for her Catholic faith. And there she is being stretched over. And you notice there's a sword. So they did use a swordsman and not an axe, because an axe is, well, axe can be much more, yes. Yeah.
Well, I was going to ask how exactly they executed the
Now, there's a block in the Tower of London. If you go toward the Tower of London, and when you go there, everyone thinks it was Anne Boleyn was executed there. Probably not, but some people say that that is the block that Mary Queen of Scots was executed on. And it's a block, a little notch for the head. I don't know, I mean, not that it matters too much, but there is a real execution block there. And there's another picture of the execution, and I like all the witnesses. So Elizabeth got rid of her enemy, but, oh, there's James. Though Elizabeth had no heir, and so he's next. And that is how Scotland and England became unified again. But we're not there yet. We're not there yet. So, while this is going on, Spain was getting rich. And all their galleons, caravels and caravels, carrying all the silver and gold from the Americas back to Spain. England was broke. They had the War of the Roses, and they never had enough money. So they were sending out privateers, most famously Sir Francis Drake. By the way, what's a privateer? It's a pirate, but who do they work for?
The government.
Yeah, the state. They get a contract. Now let's be very clear about it. If Spain caught Drake, they weren't going to say, oh, you have a contract, we're going to treat you like a prisoner of war. No, what would they have done to Drake if they would have caught him?
They would have killed him.
Executed him as a pirate. And there's pirates all over. And most pirates work for themselves, but England was smart to get these pirates and at least have them act like they're working for the crown, and they stopped Spanish ships cutting a hole into their fortune from the New World. And that was their way to kind of fight back, because England could not afford to make colonies on their own yet. Now, Drake would try. We'll get to that in just one second. And that leads us to the fabled Spanish Armada. And the Spanish Armada, now we're back to Mary Queen of Scots. There is Mary Queen of Scots being executed. She was executed just before the Armada. Who was furious of this execution of this Catholic queen who was ousted from Scotland, could be Queen of England? What king? Charles was dead. Charles, Philip, his grandson. Philip, remember Philip tried to marry, Philip married Mary, Bloody Mary. I know we have lots of Marys, get old, nothing we can do about it. Bloody Mary, she died. Tried to marry Elizabeth. Elizabeth shunned him. He's involved in this bloody war in the Netherlands. And now England is helping the Netherlands, and then they murder, to his point of view, Mary Queen of Scots. And then Drake, realizing the anger of Philip, he organizes a fleet and attacks Cadiz. Cadiz is right here, the main harbor for the Spanish fleet. Why does he attack? Basically, it's a raid to go burn. It's right here. So right in that tip right there. Great natural harbor there. Spain was beginning to organize a fleet that might shoot up here and attack England. Now this was in 1587. He destroyed this fleet. Technically they weren't at war, now they're at war. Why did they do it? Well, they thought for sure they're going to come invade. And by knocking this out, this set the stage for Philip feeling he has no choice but to avenge and knock Elizabeth out. And so, Elizabeth was an example of what we would call down the road, she was a practicer of what we call politique. Politique is this concept of using your political skills to do not what's best for religion or some ideology, but what's best for the state. So remember, she went against the sea beggars and then supported them. She toyed with Philip and then kicked him out. She allowed Mary, Queen of Scots, in, then had her executed. She was what?
A bad queen.
Well, not necessarily bad. She just changed her. At first, it seemed like it was a good, smart move to not anger Spain. And then she decided that's politically, it will help me if I now go against Spain. It was a good move politically to save Mary Queen of Scots, but now she might be a threat, so I'm going to execute her. So she'll do whatever she thinks at that moment's best for the state. Now, it doesn't mean she's right. And people will try this, make mistakes all the time. But she seemed to understand, okay, I got to stand for this, and then when the time's right, I switch. She knows one thing and only one thing. She's queen. And I got to stay as queen. This is what we'll call pragmatic. Some of you might have heard that term. Practical. But also could make her look hypocritical. And so she now realizes Spain, who has a massive army here, 20 miles, big fleet, we've slowed it down, we're vulnerable. So she begins to organize a state. Here's the Spanish plan. So 30,000 troops under the Duke of Parma are going to be waiting here. They're going to go to the coast and wait. Right here. So right today it's northern France, but then it was still part of Spain. It's a little town called Calais. Calais was part of England for a while. France took it back. Spain took it back. It's now part of France. And you can stand there and see England from Calais. And if you go there, you can go up a World War II era German watchtower / battery that's about 18 stories high. This big, massive cement thing, and you can see England is right there. It's pretty weird. What are you going to do with a massive cement building? Charge tickets. That's really all they can do. Or blow it up. Next, 130 ships under Santa Cruz will sail up here, go through the channel, pick up the forces, knock out the fleet, pick up the forces, and they're going to get these basic barges, and they're going to be, I can't even imagine putting men on these things. Flat bottom barges with little walls, throw men on them and drag them across the English Channel. And the English Channel was rough. So they're counting on probably 10 or 15% of these barges to sink. By the way, what happened to all the men?
Drown.
Nobody knew how to swim back then. And who's going to swim 19 miles? And then invade England. Is this a good plan?
Probably.
No, it's way too complex, isn't it? But that's the Spanish Armada. And then the Catholics will rise up, avenge Mary Queen of Scots, and Philip will knock them out.
Catholics do it when they try to rise up.
You'll find this out a lot. If you want to believe something, you can make it seem like it's true to you when it's not really true. And so, here's the timeline of events. I just thought this was amusing. There's a lot of stuff here. We're not going to get to it. Santa Cruz, though, almost literally days before they're ready to go from Calais, he dies. And so they have to get the Duke of Medina right here. The Duke of Medina, very loyal to Philip. What did he know about naval battles?
Nothing.
What did he know about this plan?
Probably nothing.
Here you go. And they took off sailing north. Now the English knew they were ready. They set up these beacon stations. And I just thought this was really cool. This is on Cornwall. So if you look at this map over here, it's going to sail like this. And all along the course, they set beacon stations like this. Where they had men along this course. This is actually right about here. And they just sat there all day and night. And on top, they have it set up to make a big fire. And if they see a large fleet, they're supposed to get on the rope and start the fire. And if they have beacon stations down the hall, the next beacon station does is start the fire. And go all the way down so they can warn immediately the Spanish are coming. So they were prepared. And the main British fleet is here. Southampton.
So it's kind of like that scene from Lord of the Rings where they're lighting all these fires across the land to, from parts of mountains and things like that.
It sounds like, but I haven't seen Lord of the Rings. It's too New Zealand. Too many New Zealanders.
Yeah. But it's kind of like that.
It sounds like it. It's a pretty common thing. So with that, so Plymouth is actually go Southampton. Plymouth is right next to him. By the way, anybody want to guess what What city in the New World will be named after this town? Where these separatists would go called Plymouth. And so there they have the Navy there. Yeah, Plymouth, Southampton's right next to each other. By the way, if you get a chance, Southampton's really cool. And what's the number one most important thing if you travel anywhere? There's a really good fish and chips place right next. Who likes fish and chips? You don't like fish and chips? That's good quality grease.
I like the British pieces.
Yeah, good for you. That's good stuff. Cod. So, they had relatively fast, thin, maneuverable ships. The Spanish ships, they had to take these big galleons that were these big, fat, wide-body ships. They might have been effective at Lepanto, but they couldn't maneuver. Because most of their faster ships were burnt when Drake burned Cadiz. But Philip was like, we got to attack. So these big, fat merchant ships are going to be, they're going to pack them with cannon. And they're going to sail up. And Charles Howard being commander of the fleet, overall command, Sir Francis Drake would be in command of the Navy. Drake, the year before, did try to establish a colony.
How well did that work?
Here at a place called Roanoke Island. He and a guy named Francis Raleigh trying to establish a colony. The problem was they established it right for the Armada and couldn't go back and find out what was going on for 3 years.
And the others.
When they got back, yeah, who was there?
No.
Nobody. Yes, that's one of the great mysteries in the U.S. history. All right, Drake looks very dashing there, doesn't he? Just go with me. Drake looks very dashing there, doesn't he?
Yes.
We should all grow mustaches like that. Yeah.
So wait, was Drake commanding the British fleet?
Yeah, the English fleet.
Okay.
If I say British, I'm sorry, we're still England. We're not quite Britain yet because we need Scotland. And so, here's the Armada. And what happened was, when they got here, they raided small little attacks here and here, just the little attacks darting in and out against the fleet to knock a few ships out, disrupt them. And so they were kind of disarray when they got to Calais, where they're supposed to pick up, or near Calais, and right here to pick up that fleet or the army of Palma. And there at Calais, there would be a major battle. You can tell from this, it was pretty easy to follow the course of the battle, wasn't it?
Yes.
Which side is which?
No idea what's going on.
Which side is which?
Well, they got there at Calais. Parma wasn't there. He was supposed to march there with 30,000 troops. He got busy. He got stuck around Antwerp. And so the Spanish got there, and there's no 30,000 troops. What are they supposed to do?
Back home.
Backtrack.
The problem is the winds don't really go that direction. The currents don't go that direction.
So that go all
So they're
the way
kind of
around.
stuck. So while they're sitting there waiting, the British do one of the dramatic reads. First off, Elizabeth is going to give a speech. This is a picture of it. I like her. Boy, she looks fierce in this picture, doesn't she? And got the orb, right? You always got to have an orb. Oh, I got an orb.
Oh.
See? Are you impressed?
It does not look as cool as that.
I need a pump to air this up, but that would be bad.
Is she holding a sword in that picture in her right hand?
Yeah, she had a sword.
Okay, it looks like a sword.
Yeah, she's holding. And she gave this incredible speech talking about she is just the Queen of England, but England is all that matters. This amazing speech before her fleet sailed out. And then, while the Spanish fleet is still in harbor, they sent in the hellburners. You know what the hellburners are?
Were they like bows?
What are they? Yeah, they filled them up with gunpowder and then various other flammables, set them on fire on the outside, sail them in, and then rub the gun and they explode. Okay, some exploded right away, so they didn't time it right. But what's going to happen if you send these burning ships and they start exploding into tightly anchored Spanish ships?
They'll catch flame to other ships.
And then those that don't catch, they panic and try to get out of there. And who's waiting? Drake. That's Drake's ship, the Ark Royal. There's a model of this on the Thames in London. You can go tour the exact replica of it.
That is a lot of sales.
They had to have a lot of sails, and we'll get to a little bit more later. And they're really top heavy. And you also go in there if you're claustrophobic, you could not have been on one of these ships.
No, I'd probably be at the top.
And if you're scared of heights, you wouldn't want to be up there. That's a model of it. And at the Battle of Gravelines, the now Spanish Gazette fleet, all in disarray, would meet the British fleet. Gravelines. And what the British did is they formed this concave because they knew the Spanish were in this kind of disarray, and let the Spanish kind of just sail into it, and then the arms swung around.
So they could all be fired?
Yeah. And what happened? A disaster. The Spanish fleet were too slow to maneuver, they couldn't adjust, and a huge victory. And that's right here. Well, the currents and the winds go this way. They could go this way, but they have to go really slow, and they'd be picked off. And so what do the remnants of the fleet have to do?
Go
All the way. And a good half of the ships would be destroyed along the way, crushed on the rocks. So many men would die. A humiliating disaster.
So how many did they start with?
132 ships. They came back. 60 would be destroyed in storms, 15,000 men. Less than 50 ships would get back to Cadiz. Now, see that little picture right here? That's off Ireland, and that's in the picture of Queen Elizabeth. Her fleet. This was a decisive victory. Now, the Spanish are going to try 2 more armadas. The Spanish are going to win some victories over the next 10 years. Drake is going to be killed in one of these battles. So it's not going to be like just all of a sudden the battle's over. But with the Armada in the bag, everything changed. And this will be a symbol of the Protestant government is here to stay. And the power of the British Navy, soon to be called the Royal Navy. The British Navy will become key to the success of Britain. And it makes sense. It's an island. And so the Royal Navy is going to become the most powerful fleet in the world until, well, they're going to fight this war called World War I. You might have heard of it. But they broke the bank and they couldn't afford it. But they would lose that fleet by the end of World War II. And this would be the beginnings of the British Empire. Now, they already had parts of it in Ireland. But it's no coincidence that in 1607, they're going to make a colony right here in present-day Virginia, named after Queen Elizabeth, a place called Jamestown, and begin a British Empire. They're going to start. Scooping up places here, and this place called India. And so that is the Spanish Armada. I love that picture. She kind of looks creepy in there, doesn't she?
Why does what's the thing called that's around her neck?
I can't remember.
Looks like the sign.
That's a weird panel for it.
So,
Well, then
I can't remember. I know there's a name, but I can't remember. They were popping in my head. But after Philip II died, replaced by his son, and you can see the issue with that, right? The Habsburg chin. And Spain is going to be in decline from this time on. A slow decline that's going to turn into an absolute free fall by the end of the century. And then poor Philip IV, poor Carlos couldn't eat, had to eat through a straw. His jaw was so messed up because of inbreeding. Poor Carlos, he could not, and he couldn't have an heir. Couldn't do it. And that's where we end. Shall we get to exploration at the same time?
I don't know if it's just me, but I think Philip III should not have had that.
So let's write down exploration. We'll do one thing really quick and then I'll stop. So one thing really quick. I'm going to make it in the cauldron. What do you think? Go ahead. In the cauldron. Hit the cauldron. That's close enough, right? Did it say on the table?
Yeah, it's still on the table.
Poor Carlos. I mean, seriously though, they had to feed him through a kind of a straw.
Could he not open his mouth?
Yeah, his jaw was so bad he couldn't open his mouth. And his teeth were like just like 17 layers of teeth.
Your arm has rings.
Inbreeding. Oh, this is Jones now. Give me a sec. I actually popped up cold stuff. All right, here we go. Just a couple things in really quick. So Nicholas, that's your phone. I get a phone, so make sure that goes away, right? I know I wasn't doing anything at that moment, but let's get the European, because this happened at the same time. It's no coincidence we have the Reformation, the Renaissance, at the same time as exploration. That changed the thought, changed the attitudes, but also competition between the churches. And so, here, Columbus. And so let's get to a little bit about this. We have no idea what Columbus looked like. No. One thing we will say though, the Chinese probably did make it to the Americas. Well, there's a story that St. Patrick might have made it in 800, but on the Pacific, the Chinese might have made it in, somewhere in the 14th century. Zheng He had this massive fleet, over 400 feet long. So you think about it for a second, that's longer than a football field. These massive sailing vessels that made these huge triumphant sailing through Indonesia into the Bay of Bengal. But perhaps there is enough evidence that they might have made it all the way to the Pacific. Off the coast of California, they found the round granite anchors that his fleet used, these big round balls with a hook in them. And they're massive, and they found them south of San Diego. Now, I guess they could have thrown them over, maybe that's shot put. But now that implies that the Chinese got there. Now, that is an amazing feat. By the way, look at, compared to size. That is one of Zheng He's ships, right here. And that's a Santa Maria, in comparison, one of Columbus's 3 ships. So that just gives you an idea of the size and the scope. Now, the Chinese are going to suffer a couple of battles. There'll be a civil war. A new dynasty will take over, and they literally destroy their fleet and pull back in, just at the time the Europeans were rolling through.
Why was there a need for this giant ship? Why was there a need of this?
A combination of think how many goods you could take on one ship, but also think of the power that's going to have. If one of those ships sail into your harbor, when you have nothing but canoes, wow. Or even small ships like Santa Maria.
Well, I mean, I feel like if you just have enough of those, then actually
Valid point. You put all your eggs in one basket.
Yeah.
And these are some of the areas he traveled there. When the Gama arrived at Calicut, which is not the same as Calcutta, I always think it is, but it's right here. That's where Zheng He's fleet came. And they would actually be a pretty big conflict between Chinese and the Portuguese. And so the point is, yeah, the Chinese probably did get there. Oh, one more thing. I mentioned this with the Vikings. That's why I didn't put a slide in here. But the Norse was here to Greenland, and they did try to colonize here. Didn't I talk about that in last semester? Okay, write that down now.
You touched it on like a very small portion.
So everyone write down the Norse. And the Norse did the Ireland, Greenland, and Newfoundland, right here. They did try to colonize these 2 places. We have no idea what happened. There was a mini ice age, and almost certainly these villages probably died, and they probably joined the neighboring tribes. That's almost certainly what happened. And by the way, why did the Norse call this Greenland?
So it'll be inviting.
It's really nice there. It's green. There's that little breeze spurt of warming, and then there's a mini ice age. But here's the thing why the Norse or the Chinese don't matter as much as what's going to happen in 1492. Now, I want to be very clear about it. We're not talking, this is not discovered, because there were millions of people who had already discovered this. They were living there. But 1492, when Columbus arrived, the entire world changed. And that is going to trigger massive globalization. Global trade, everything we turned upside down. The Norse, that did not happen. The Chinese, they probably did arrive, but that did not lead to the big change. That's why Columbus is so important. That's why that's a hinge moment in history. So in 1492, that was from Ptolemy's map. Ptolemy was the man who, his map came from Constantinople to Florence. Toscanelli started working with this. That is a known world. And pretty good, isn't it, here? He had stories.
I think it was just like a perfect curve.
And by the way, this shows one other thing. They all thought the world was what? Round. They all knew the world was round. Everybody knew the world was round.
No, they did not. They all thought it was flat.
Flat and going to go off, there'll be sea monsters. So let's get to the reasons for exploration. The first one was trade. Last thing, right? Write down trade. We'll finish this tomorrow. Sound good? This will make a good short ID essay question on the test. Don't you agree?
Yeah. No, that's definitely
No. Yes?
that's not no, no.
I mean, if we had more of it, probably. But
No. I got another place.
They did it not.
Into the stocks.
I'll make it
Don't break the stocks.
This is my favorite part. So he made this. This is one of your. So we'll do this second semester on a project. We have to make something for the 20th. But somebody made this as a torture device. Why did he feel the need to put this? I mean, was he seriously planning on using this on somebody?
No, what it was is he knew that you had students that were full of trouble, so he wanted you to be able to
What do you
punish
think?
them, and that's how he did it.
What's up?
What you was cruising at?
We're coming up to it. So 17th century. Nails will work like their weight in gold. If you're rich, you kind of put your nails into your walls. If you're not rich, that seems kind of funny, but you know. I mean, what do you guys now show that you're so wealthy?
I can show my
We wear a
online.
mask.
I can
Okay,
show my
moving on.
digital photos.
All right, so
My use pictures.
tomorrow we'll finish this. Everyone have the review list. I think you need the review list. So the test I'm looking at for
Live
Tuesday.
internet.
Going to do quickly over exploration. And once I start saying hands are hard to draw, you become very good at it. Oh yeah, how do you get these?
You should have like a project where one of us has to draw a painting.
Side cap.
Oh my god.
It's terrible. It's absolutely terrible.
I think that's when it cuts up there, you can worship.
Good. I'm very.
I don't know there.
There's another poster.
This is that poster.
We have we have the Zycat. Isn't this yours, Brennan? Oh, here it is.
What? Oh yeah.
The head nurse.
Yeah.
Are you scared?
No.
Even the disease. It's a pretty good drawing. Here's what lies below. Give me a second. The hand.
Yeah.
See another one? Terrifying 1950s horror movies. These would be good. That's what we're doing for the rest of the semester. We're gonna film each one of these.
Oh my god.
Oh
They hide among us.
What are these? They look scary at all.
Does the game called Among Us?
There's a game of Among Us where
watermark.
it's basically like
Oh,
a
yeah. And then what's this one?
Arctic bears.
Art.
John Wayne is.
John Wayne
Is that Tails?
All right. So please start looking through the review list, and on Monday I'll finish up anything. We'll do a quick review. Test on Tuesday.
I feel like what you should have us do is have a project where we draw someone and like draw the teacher as a portrait as the Renaissance.
Me?
Yeah, just like
We don't
try
need
to
it.
draw.
We don't need pictures of me.
No, like you know how with the Renaissance they're always facing in one direction.
Good point.
We should just have it do it, but go ahead and see.
So that's my plan for these. I was just going to give you Renaissance art on Tuesday. You have to identify which scene. Sound good? That's terrifying.
It was actually done
What?
by the 7.
Oh. Have a good week. Have a good week. Have a good night. See you tomorrow. I know it's sad because it's Friday.
It's not Friday, it's Thursday.
It's
I
Thursday.
smoked it.
Tomorrow's fine.
Only even look really bad is tough. I'm so bad at it.
Good luck.
I'm
What's
actually
going on?
I'm so good.
Yeah, tonight we have the money of the practice, and then Fridays, preliminaries, and Saturdays.
That's kind of nice.
Yeah, a bit long weekend though.
Get some sleep. Always remember those trips that I down. Goodbye, everybody. Good luck.
Just search up 5 Minutes at Freddy's Spider Baby 7.
What's that?
Just search up 5 Minutes at Freddy's Spider Baby 7. This is really gruesome
I
stuff.
don't know if I want to see gruesome stuff. Oh, we got cults today. Cults. We're gonna quick, everyone's gonna show their paper or their poster, talk very briefly about them, and then we'll talk in cults. Sound good? I think I got everybody. Oh, got yours underneath the frisbee.
Saving the best for under the frisbee.
The best friend of the frisbee. That's an old saying.
Yeah, everyone says
I gotta say that printer that is it Mr. Dawes has this? That's a.
that. They didn't use this twice.
I guess I've seen these before, and I imagine it's not cheap, but
Where is it?
all of them are great. They have really good ones.
This one right
Or Zycops?
Terrifying icon. Yeah.
Well, man.
Holy
Oh, so that's you need it.
What? I love it. I love the black.
I thought it was sooner than that, so I was worried that.
So 145. We're gonna do.
We came out.
We're not gonna. Everyone's gonna. We're not gonna. We'll pick the Colts first while Carlin's here, and then we'll come back and look at the posters, and then I'll. You have to. I'm gonna go over the characteristics of a cult.
Okay.
So just get it from somebody you trust in this classroom. I wish you luck in that.
Not even especially kind of. Does anyone in this classroom trust me?
Tyler,
Thanks for your first year.
I totally trust you.
This will be.
Sounds a little bit sarcastic, but I'll take it.
No, that's how long my saying it. Sorry. Unfortunately.
You have blue eyes like. It's blue eyes like dragon.
I got a phone call from potential spam. Should I give them a call back?
Yeah.
Oh, I know potential spam. They're
Yeah.
a guy.
They're calling everybody. Potential spam has called me from Antler, Pennsylvania, and Punta Gorda, Florida, in the last 2 days.
Oh yeah, they have a vacation house down in Florida.
The spam family.
Imagine buying a vacation house and being like, yeah, I want to put it in Florida. I want to live in
That's
Florida.
literally 3 months out.
That'd
Not really have interest.
I think let's split it or not. I have a position for us, and split it nine, and I was like, yeah, that's. But anyways,
Is that if you have like different IDs, you still like, you have my law.
you should like drop down. Like my having like Canada and Orlando. I gave you some new British house.
And she looks like she works for them. She has like really nice, really nice leather shirts and everything. And she's been talking to like all the like Florida is now just like.
Especially in the next massive, that's, yeah, they know.
So I was ready.
That's such a great system. Everybody, take out the cult assignment, because we have to do the cults first. Because Carlin has put us on a tight schedule.
And like she was about
Was it Olivia?
All I'm saying is.
and she was the head of
Yeah, I'm sure everything was Olivia. Instead of a centralized government, we should like go back to a great age of pirates.
Yeah.
I
So
know.
it's decentralized. We should have a decentralized.
Olivia, but,
That's girls like this.
Just pirates.
yeah. People just hang out easy.
Honestly, we should have all crimes we need.
Except the purge of the secret.
No, the first purge is solid, big-ish. It's like fish first. Well, it goes down.
Yeah, they made us.
Okay. I can listen to the last guy.
It's rotten too.
Anything but the second one, she wasn't there. I heard her in half the math section.
They all
Rocky, I was Rocky 3 times. Why?
They box. That's awesome.
That's everybody.
It's better.
Okay, you guys
I did box back in ninth grade.
back in 09.
You're not, you're right. All right, so before we look at the posters, everybody take out your cult assignment. Now, it's Calvin.
Oh, the poster?
We're gonna look at the posters. The cult assignment. Let's go, chop chop. Check them out. Anything else? Let's go.
Not even a please.
I didn't have time, people. I'm moving here. Okay, so let's talk
I
cults.
like it before.
Are we gonna randomize first?
Huh? You have your cult assignment.
Oh, okay. I
I'll
was
take
like,
your chest. You have a cult assignment?
No.
Why not?
Yeah.
Dude, the boss already left. You better start
I
running.
actually did leave that. She was nice to get out of my back now.
Carla starts swimming through the air.
All right, so you have it? So look up somebody else for this. Okay, so let's talk cults. Now, maybe that one or, maybe a couple people work on together, those are the ones that asterisks. But I think we need to do a presentation. You have a paper and a presentation. Those on top, I will talk about the characteristics. Some of these do not apply. And not everything will be technically a cult, but these are things that people thought were a cult or were treated like a cult. And it's great story. Some of these are just amazing, but the United States is really susceptible to this. You see a lot of cults also in Britain, and of course they're kind of popping up in places that have a lot of economic insecurity. Yeah,
Could you go over some of them?
you just ask questions.
Church Universal.
Church Universal is one of the most important, one of the biggest cults in American history. It was this big doomsday cult that came out of kind of Christianity. Some of you might have looked at it, but there's a lot of these cults where the end is coming, and so it's a combination of a religious and a doomsday cult. But they also try to pick a place where they can hide and avoid the impending nuclear war. And they had dates set when it was going to happen, and they picked what they saw was a very isolated mountain area, a place called Garrison, Montana, right there. And so the cult was huge in Montana. They built these bomb shelters. If you ever go to Yellowstone National Park through via Livingston, and if you're going into the park and driving down the highway and look to the right, there's these big buildings about 15 miles or 10 miles from Garrison. That's still Church Universal Triumph Plan. It was huge and cult. They had this, a very charismatic leader. They still operate. I have a Church Universal Triumph book. Somebody did this order. I said, don't do this, but he did it anyways. got the book, America's Medicine. And that's the Church Universal Triumph. That's coming here.
Oh, is that like their holy text of sorts?
One of many. Yes, they're religious Christianity. Is there another one? Yes.
Nazi, is that like the World War II Nazis?
Yeah. So what Nazi Germany is part of their mystique is they try to take a combination of these fake Norse mythology, and it's kind of made up Norse mythology. I know all mythology is made up. They literally,
It was even more made.
yeah, they literally just made it up on a whole cloth at the end of the 19th century. Combined with trying to turn like Nazism and trying to turn into this kind of cult of personality around Hitler, and they tried to make it into a cult.
Okay.
And they have all the elements of a cult too. Yes.
Happy science.
Happy Science was it started in Japan, but they're a cult that believed basically that through science, through technology, they could form a better and happier and more, how about say more perfect union? Gosh. But, I don't know what I'm trying to say. It popped in my head, now it's gone, saying it's about a more perfect union. But a more content society, that people be more accepted in society through science. So all these people join, and on the surface, it just seems kind of like, okay, we're here to learn about science, but then add an underbelly of things going on underneath, you join, what you have to do to become a member. Is there another one we're not sure about? Yes.
Could I possibly do Warren Jeffs?
Is he on there? He's on there, isn't he?
I did not see him.
I thought I put him on there.
I like him. He seems like a good guy.
Some of the things you have to be kind of careful on.
Yes.
But yes, for a lot of these calls, you have to be careful on parts. I think you probably know what I'm getting at, right?
Don't join the call.
Well, besides the obvious,
Oh,
don't join the
okay.
call, because we're starting our own. Yes. Read your hand. Does anyone have their hand up? Any other ones? Am I just seeing things?
Can we be a bird cult? Since you got two in your name.
We're gonna tell you my middle name.
We all have to change our name to a type of bird. That's our new name. That's our whole name.
Tyler, you should be